Well, hello. Welcome to Our Life Beyond, the podcast where we explore how to navigate and hopefully thrive through some of life's biggest transitions. I'm your co-host, Scott Dibben, and I've teamed up with my great friend and mentor, Connie King, to share some stories, strategies, and insights that helped us adapt to the ever-changing seasons of our life.
Whether your life transition is divorce, death of a loved one, switching careers, moving to a new city, or just trying to figure out what the hell is next, we're with you every step of the way. But always remember, we're not therapists, just fellow travelers with a knack for finding humor in the chaos, and maybe some untraditional method of overcoming what life dishes out to us. Hopefully, you'll have fun embarking on this journey. So now, let's get started.
This episode of Our Life Beyond is proudly sponsored by Habit Coffee Company. Located right off Highway 60 in Rogersville, Habit Coffee is more than just your average coffee shop. They serve up delicious, scratch-made breakfast and lunch options daily. And they even specialize in catering local events. With their state-inspected kitchen and a passion for quality, every visit to Habit Coffee is a treat.
Now that the construction is complete, getting to Habit Coffee is easier than ever. Thank you to Habit Coffee for being a proud sponsor of Our Life Beyond. Make Habit Coffee your new habit today. Hello, Scott.
Well, hello, Connie. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm okay, but boy, it's been a rough week on social media.
Oh, it's been a rough week, period. So today is Sunday, and on Tuesday, we got a new president.
We did.
Election time in the United States is a ride. That's the only way I know how to put it.
So has it always been this way, Connie? I mean, I've been on this planet for 53 years, and I don't remember it being quite this bad. And is it going to continue to get worse?
I think it has. I think it has been bad because I remember in 9/11, so what was that, 2001?
Yes.
One of our businesses actually went under because that was the day that you would do direct marketing on TV.
Okay.
And our biggest product, we had just run a test for it, and it was going to be the absolute biggest product we'd ever had. 9/11 happened, so we ran the ad on 9/10.
Oh,
It was
yeah?
the biggest product. 9/11 happened, and then the election happened, and it took all the news or all the commercials. I mean, we couldn't get
Any airtime?
we couldn't get any airtime because I think our elections do. They take up so much time and so much space and so much mental energy. So,
Yeah. I
yeah.
agree. Hopefully everybody was able to enjoy our two-part series on dating. I talked about the men's view. You talked about the women's view, dating and the dating apps. But now we're going to switch gears. We're going to get a little more serious. But I also want to make sure that everybody understands all of these are our opinions, but we are going to be very unbiased, I think, on this episode as far as anything political. It really has nothing to do with who become president or who did not. It's just going to be our views and what we took out of this election. You agree with that?
I agree. So we are going to explore the emotions of this political spectrum. We'll start talking a little bit about the underlying factors that influenced the outcome based on our opinion, why things turned out the way they did. And I'm sorry whether you celebrated or whether you're feeling deflated. We really just want to have a candid, respectful conversation that looks beyond headlines, social media, people being ugly, and we just kind of want to talk about the why behind the votes. So if you are on board with that, let's dig in.
All right, that sounds great.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about, you are definitely more political than I am.
I'm political, but I don't follow either party, and I want to make sure everybody understands that. I really do kind of divide the line. Whenever I go to vote, I'll vote one side or the other, but I don't vote straight parties. I look at things, and as we go through this, we'll probably see that. I look at things financially for our country, probably more than I do social, but we'll get into that. But I want everybody to understand that for me, I don't vote Democrat or Republican straight. I really do try to figure out who I think the best person for our country is. So with
And
that,
I am the
Connie,
same
you
way.
I was gonna say, I
Yeah,
think
I'm the
you're
same way.
yeah.
But this election was a little bit different, and part of that was just the sheer fact. I'll just tell you a quick little story. Tuesday, granted, I have a hard time getting out because I have a broken leg, but I did not vote in this election, and it's probably I'm gonna give myself a little bit of leeway and say this is the second election I've not voted in since I was 18, and I'm 53 right now. And I was talking to somebody, and they said, "Well, then you can't bitch about the outcome." And I said, "The fuck I can't." And here's why. I don't think either party gave me a very good candidate to vote for. And I think that's really, really important to not make people feel guilty to not want to partake. I didn't have a dog in this race at all. And so to look at it from a point of view where you just go, yeah, it all looks kind of baffling to me. I come at it from a different perspective then.
You know, for me, I did go vote, and I don't do anything on social media typically, politically. Part of it's because of the job I've got. Part of it's because I just don't want to try to influence someone because that's not my job. I don't think that's right for me to do. But I did put one political thing out this year, and it was about maybe it's time to take the keys away from Joe Biden. And I just, I use the example of when your grandpa gets older. Of course, he never wants to give the keys away, but sometime you have to take them from him. And where I was going with this was I was trying to say it's time for the Democrats to find somebody. Let's find somebody that's very strong. Let's find somebody that can really challenge Donald Trump because I wanted this to be a very fair election. And I'm going to be honest, neither candidate I cared for. I did not care for either candidate. I didn't want either of these, to be quite honest with you. It wasn't really fair with Harris because she had 100 days to do what Donald Trump had been preparing for several years. But I
Mhm.
can tell you, I did not want either one of these either, so I agree with you, Connie. So
Well, so oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, so with that, what our goal of this, I think, we just wanna try and help set the tone to be compassionate and balanced in your view during these next few weeks or months because there's a lot of heated discussions out there, and I think it's important that we at least try to voice our or express our opinion that everybody needs to calm down and try to at least take a breath and really look at what this is.
And I think you're right on that. Earlier, you and I were talking about I don't know why people become so involved and so passionate that they are willing to so involved and so passionate about people they don't know, about who these people are really in their life. They're willing to piss off, get rid of, like, just have no contact with family and friends.
Yeah,
And I'm always amazed by that. So that's the one thing I want this discussion to be about is very open and honest. And again, it is our opinion, but let me tell you, I can see both sides of
sure.
the parties. I mean, I can see both of them and I get both of them. So hopefully we can kind of walk through that and talk a little bit more.
Let's jump in and talk about one of our first points is while the presidential election's important, I think we miss the point as Americans because we have checks and balances. Let's start with that because everybody knows we have the separation of power. We have the executive and legislative and judicial branches. So, whoever it was, whether it was Harris, which everybody, half the America hated, or it's Trump, half America hated, those people are not going to go in and change your life forever. You've got 500 people underneath there that's in the House and in the Senate. And that's part of what we should have been focusing on, in my opinion, but we didn't. We missed the ball and we just watched that top line. I don't know anybody that complained about who got governor or state representative or House in the state we're in, Missouri. Nobody on social media complained. The only thing they complained about was the president. And I can tell you, Connie, and tell me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the social issues today, marriage rights, even abortion, that a lot of that's determined from a state level unless the government thinks they're overstepping their boundaries and then they get into a heated match. But most of the time, the states try and take that on. So I think we missed the mark because I don't know anybody cared that we ended up with the governor we ended up. And that was so interesting to me.
That's absolutely true. And I feel like a lot of times also on those, even the state amendments or the people have one thing they think about.
Yeah.
It's not the whole as a state. So just for you, because this is something that you like to think about is the checks and balances. How do you think now we have a Republican president coming into office. We have Republican
Senate.
Congress, we have
Yep.
Senate, judicial, everything's Republican. How do you think that's going to play out? Do you think there's still going to be good checks and balances?
I do, because I can tell you right now, while President-elect Trump is considered a Republican,
Mhm.
I think there's probably 20% of the Republicans that absolutely do not follow him, do not like him. You combine that with what's on the Democratic side of things, I think it's an equal of power, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, why do we think that happened, but I think there's still a balance of power. Now, I do think America missed the boat. If we wanted a Democratic Senate, we should have been focused on that. Nobody focused on that, and I can tell you the papers, all the media, especially my social media, and I've got a lot of people on there, nobody focused on any of that. Now, there was a few amendments to the Missouri Constitution that they were, focused on, but nobody gave any extra thought, I don't think, to any of that. So, if we look out, I do believe that there's still gonna be a balance of power, because I do not believe that Donald Trump represents the Republican Party like the Republican Party would like him to. You agree?
I I agree with that, absolutely. And I agree with you as far as the state level. I mean, we really, really missed the boat on that.
We did. And
Because and here's
I say we did. We missed the boat as far as nobody's complaining about it. Maybe everybody thought about it and voted the way they wanted, but I don't believe anybody invested the amount of time that they did in the presidential election.
absolutely, I agree with that. And I really do think that's so much more important because, we know that the more liberal states are on the coasts, and
Yeah.
it would make people happy to have different rules for them than here in the Midwest, maybe, and so I think that's one of the things that really does need to flip a little.
You know what I love about our country, though? If you don't like the politics of Missouri, move to
You can
Illinois.
move.
Yeah, you can move to Illinois. You can move to Michigan, or I say Michigan, Minnesota is more on the Democrat side, but you can pick a state that's even close by. So you don't have to say, I'm leaving the country, because I really don't believe a lot of the social issues are determined there. They're at the state level. Because I want to ask you one thing, Connie. Marijuana, is it federally legal?
No, it
Then
isn't.
why the hell can Colorado sell it? Missouri? It's all legal state-wise, and that's why I'm trying to say, focus on your local community. First of all, focus on your neighbors, focus on your local community, focus on the state government, and I really believe that means more than who just become president.
You're right, and it's funny because I think change starts at that smaller level.
Absolutely.
Let's take the marijuana, let's just go with that, because Missouri legalized it.
Yes.
And I know several people who smoke marijuana, and they have to have it for medical reasons. And if they go somewhere, they are putting it in their luggage. They're doing things with it.
Sure.
Well, when you fly, you're flying under the FAA, which is a federal
Yep.
agency, and not once. And I'm sure somebody's gonna be like, "Well, I know somebody who's been busted." Guess what? Not me. Not once have I seen somebody, because I think what's happening is anybody who's checking bags, they're like, "Nah, all these states have it legal. People need it. I'd much rather have somebody smoking marijuana than drinking because they're so much more laid back." I mean, I think the changes start at that state level or that county level, in fact.
I agree, and, with that, though, I think the reason people miss the focus which is kind of our next point, it's the impact of social media. On social media and all of the advertisements, we were just bombarded with Harris and Trump for president, and I can tell you, Connie, once you Google or once you go in and like something, or you don't even have to like it, if you go to the page and you spend enough time reading it, those cookies, all of the stuff that either your iPhone or your iPad or whatever it is device you're using, this is all an algorithm. Once they figure out you like content, guess what? They feed on that. And if they know you're against Donald Trump, they're going to feed stuff that's negative to Donald Trump. And what that does, that just builds and reinforces your beliefs. This guy is terrible. I don't know why anybody in the world would ever vote for him. He's evil. It was the same thing on the Harris side. It was so funny because I watched it, everybody's like, "Well, why in the hell would we ever vote? She's been in office for 4 years, almost 4 years, nothing's changed." I mean, both sides, if you fed to the or if you would feed to that, you got as much information about that as you wanted. And what I think people need to do, if we really wanna be smart about it, take a step back and fact check this stuff. Go out and say go to even if you don't like Fox News, go to Fox News, go to CNN, go to wherever it is you have to read opposing stories on this and see if you can figure out what the truth is, because I can tell you social media feeds on what you want it to.
And I think that was the other thing. I would see my friends' posts, and so much of the time, I'm always so amazed that people don't do a lot of research. And then they post stuff like it's been researched to death. A lot of times will like a post either way because I'm so happy that these people have their own opinion and are having a discussion. And yeah, sometimes it turns ugly, but let me tell you, that's freedom of speech. And I think that's really, really important. And yeah, I don't love social media. I don't want the ads for Trump or Harris, if you want to know the truth. I don't want
Sure.
any of them. But I do love that social media allows us to voice our opinion. I do love that.
The only thing I wish that we would present things as our opinion and not like we have fact checked it, because I'm very analytical, you know that, Connie. So there was, I know 4 instances, both sides. I promise you, this wasn't one side; it was both sides. I got something through social media from an individual, and it was posted to where everybody got it. And I thought, "Ooh, this is interesting." Well, what do? I spend 2 hours and I fact check it, and I figure out it's false. And I remember on all 4 instances, I sent a message back privately and I said, "Hey, just so you know, that's not right. And here's really what it is. And here's 3 sites that says this." Do you know nobody cared that it was right or wrong? It followed the belief that they wanted to represent and push forward. And I'm like, "Oh, that's almost sad to me."
Yep.
Because they're saying, "I got this from this site." You can get anything from the web. You can get anything false that you want, and it looks so legitimate.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that does drive me a little crazy, Connie. I just wish that we would fact check a little more if we're gonna represent it as truth. Now, if we wanna say in there, "Hey, I don't know if this is true, but this may be something somebody looks at," but nobody puts it that way. They're like, "See, I told you this was happening, blah, 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 blah," and I click on it and it's from TikTok, and I'm like, "Holy shit, TikTok just become a reporting service for news?" No, no, it's just ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Well, and I think a lot of people will fight over these things. So they post something, they'll fight over it, and they have to prove everybody wrong to
Correct.
prove their point. And it's like, if that's what you want to stand on, just stand on it. I mean, just say, you know what, I love Trump because I don't know, I'm trying to make something up because I feel like my finances did better while he was in office.
Sure.
Well, great. I can understand then. But when you're like, "Oh, Trump did this was so much better, all these things were so much better," and then you go look and you do the reporting and you're like or the research and you're like, that is not what any of this says."
Sure. Both parties are doing that on inflation,
Absolutely.
on immigration. I mean, and that's what's crazy to me is if there was just a way that we could figure out and actually uncover all the bullshit. And I can tell you it's not easy. It's complicated and it takes a while. And if you look at how many issues are out there, I'm not saying that you could spend your lifetime trying to figure out which candidate's the best, but I think pick out what is most valuable to you. Like for me, I can tell you right now, financials of our country, I'm worried more about that than almost anything in our country today. And I know that may seem sad, but when we talk a little more about that, we'll hopefully understand that. But I look at who was trying to balance the budget, which nobody tries to balance our budget, which pisses me off. I go back to 92 and 96 when Ross Perot, I don't know if you remember when he pulled out all the charts. I voted for the guy because he had data behind him. Nobody else has any of that. But where I'm going with that is pick out what it is that you drives you or makes you think the US is going to be a better country because of it. Research that and research it with the candidate and pick the
Well,
right one.
Yeah, also on social media, the other aspect, so you come at things from a very analytical point, and I come at things from a more emotional point of view. And one of the things on social media that I hate is number 1, when a friend of yours who believes something different is mean and ugly and downgrades anybody who doesn't think, they indict them basically for not thinking the same way they do. That's one thing. And the second thing is, oh, this is going to sound bad, but
Just say it.
you and I spoke about this, the whole counseling that happened after the
Oh,
election.
yeah.
So I saw that one of the colleges in the town was offering counseling and, you know,
Not just a
whatever.
college. I can vouch for you that there are companies I know for a fact that were doing the same thing. Go ahead, Connie. I didn't mean to
So
interrupt, but it's not just colleges.
Well, social media brings that up. My first response, because of who I am, how I've lived, and everything that I've been through, my first response is, "What? Why?" As I sit there and I say that, I go, I would like to sit down with somebody who needed the counseling or who I mean, because I understand disappointment. I understand being sad about those things.
So to make it clear, what you're saying though is the university and these companies, they're basically saying if the employees are having a hard time coping with what happened over the election, that they've got counselors available to help them. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm
Okay. I
saying.
wanted
I'm
to make
sorry I
sure.
didn't
Yeah.
clarify that. Yeah. But for me, social media exacerbates that. Like, if you have somebody who's like, "Oh, I'm so sad. I'm so sad," you can see 15 people who go, "Well, now I can't go to work. I can't do this. I can't do that." And I'm thinking, are all those people really sad, or is it just the train to jump on? But I know there's people who are sad about it. I know there's people who need some help coping with it. I've never done that. I've never really needed to I mean, I go to counseling, but on a situation like that, I don't know that it would stop my day. And so social media sometimes I think exacerbates that type of thing. It exacerbates the ugly and it exacerbates the drama. That's
Yeah.
the best way for me to put it.
And
Um,
social media right now, I think that if you're having to go into counseling because of the election or if you're having a problem with it, it may be time to pause social media for a little while because I can tell you
yeah.
I'm on there and I told you before this, Connie, I'm about ready to pause mine because I watch both sides right now, and I can tell you I'm not on either of these sides, to be quite honest with you. And I watch the hatred from both sides. You know, if you voted for this person, I can never be your friend again. And the other side is gloating sometimes. Sometimes they're not, but I mean, I'm watching this and I feel like I'm watching a football game instead of an election. You know, it really feels like that. It feels like we're voting for teams here. And it's sad. It really is sad that
That
we've
is sad.
stooped to this level, in my
You
opinion.
know, there are a lot of therapists who have this is kind of an offshoot, but a lot of therapists who have come out and they're like, "In a marriage, you're a team." Well, we need to think of our country that way too. We're a team.
At least your
So,
neighbors.
yeah, if the person you thought was best for the job did not get the job, yes, that's sad. That's not fun. But now where do we go? What do
Yeah,
we do? How do we, get together and figure it out?
yeah.
That's
So
my thoughts.
so let's jump into what happened and what they're actually starting to say out there, and I say them, once again, I read a lot, I watch a lot of videos, and I promise you, I watch on every side of it, but the big thing that I'm hearing right now, Connie, is there is a need to evolve all the political parties to what's needed today, and it's so interesting the conversations they're having. So I wanna take you to and I know I sent this to you, but there was a video, and this video had if anybody knows these people, they'll probably know these are hardcore political people in their own parties. One of them is Harold Ford Jr., Democrat, and the other is Karl Rove, which is Republican. Everybody's probably heard Karl Rove. I don't know why, but I've heard that name more than the other of, Harold Ford. But they actually got up beforehand, and they went through the map and the electoral votes and how it all broke down. What shocked me, Connie, was there were several states. There was one that they talked about in, not states, sorry, counties There was one county in Florida, one county, I believe, in one of the Carolinas. It may have been North Carolina, but the one that really I keyed in on was there was a county in Texas that was down at the very border, and they showed that this county had not voted Republican since 1896. This election, they voted Republican. But they also showed a few other counties that did the same thing. And it was interesting. The guy that went from the board come over and then started talking to this Harold Ford Jr. from the Democrats and Karl Rove. And I want to tell you, I think a lot of Harold Ford Jr. because what he said, he's the one that started this conversation. He said, we missed the mark. He said, and he's the one that said, our party is going to need to evolve to today's standards, basically. We are not connecting with the people. If you've got a county that has voted Democrat since 1896 that has switched to Republicans, there's something wrong with our party. And he said, basically, we have 36 months before this all starts over again to figure out what we can do to connect with our people, because we are supposed to be for the people, not just for our party. So that was such an interesting conversation they had. Give me your thoughts, Connie.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think both parties have I think that's the reason Trump won is because he is this outsider who can't he's not a lifetime politician. And I think that was the hope. People want to feel seen and heard. And
Yes.
I don't think either of the political parties are offering that. I think the hope was Trump would be that. I think a lot of people have realized that he's closer than a lifetime politician, but is he really
It's a
gonna
wild
be that
card. Yeah.
yeah. Is he gonna really be that good? And I agree absolutely. I think if one of those political parties handed us a really smart, solid, talk to the people candidate, I think they'd sweep it at this point. Because I don't see staunch Democrats anymore, and I don't see staunch Republicans anymore. I'm sure everybody has them somewhere, but I think our generation for sure has gotten to the point where we go, let's hear what they have to say. Who is it? I mean, I think there's so many people who want a median candidate instead of these
Yeah.
extremes that if one of the parties handed you something like that, I think that that would be a way to win over everybody.
Yeah, I don't think you see very many people that vote a straight ticket of Republic or Democrat anymore. I can tell you, I've got a very good friend of mine that really leans to one side a lot, that ended up voting for the other side for one of the official or for one of the positions. And I was impressed with that. But talking with that individual, basically said, I just didn't believe in the other person, even though that's typically the party I swayed toward. It just didn't feel right, and liked the views of the other person better. So you're right, Connie. It's not like you go to a household and you say, okay, they're completely Republican, completely Democrat, or it shouldn't be. I should say, because I think you need to look at the individual person and what they're trying to do for the country or the state or the local government.
Right. Absolutely. I think so too.
You also told me something, we were talking at the beginning, that you had researched that there was a expert out there that was basically saying that they had a reason why they thought Trump appealed to more people, and it had to do with a tagline. Can you share that?
Yeah, so that's funny. I thought I already said this. There is a marketing man I follow, Donald Miller, and he was talking about how Donald Trump had a very clear message, which was make America great again. That was his tagline. And what that plays into is I get to decide what made America great. And so in my mind, Donald Trump is going to do that. Now, he may not. He may think everything opposite of what I think, but that tagline, which is what we've heard constantly from him, makes people go, "Oh, he's going to make us all live easier, bring up the unemployment." I mean, just all the things where you and I actually had to look up Kamala's
Yeah.
tagline, and it was a new way forward. And so Donald Miller was talking about how, what does that mean? A new way forward. It focused more on her. She was the new way forward. When the reality is we don't want to see a person. We want to see like the big picture, America. It's going to be great for everybody, not just following her, like moving her forward because she's the new way. He was kind of talking about that. And he also attributed that to Donald Trump losing in the last election because the tagline was "Keep America Great." There were millions of people who didn't think America was great because they were not affected by his, or not affected much, or affected negatively in his first presidency.
Sure.
So for him to say, keep America great, people were going, what? It's not that great. How are we going to keep it this way? No, let's keep moving forward. Let's do better. And so he attributed the taglines and the messages to failure or success of the candidate. It was really interesting.
Well, we all know marketing plays a big role in everything, in anything you buy. If you see it enough times on TV and it looks appealing, you're going to go look at it in person. So
Absolutely.
I mean, I hate it. I hate to think that marketing can drive that much, but it absolutely does. This is the reason the super PACs end up, putting so much money into these candidates and help them with advertisements, I believe.
Well,
But
Trump sold the dream,
yeah, of course he
you
did.
know?
And we'll
So,
see, he's got 4 years. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I am really excited what's gonna happen in 4 years. If we've really got the Democrat and the Republican side saying we've got to evolve our political parties to meet more what our, what the common person or what our people want. That's exciting to me. This was a wake-up call, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And once again, if we go back to the beginning, I don't think that in the next 4 years, we're gonna have all this devastation and that the US is gonna go under because of it, because I do think that we have enough checks and balances to keep that from happening. So I am excited to see what happens 4 years from now and what happens to both political parties.
but let's talk a little bit about that. It may not happen in the next 4 years.
No,
Okay, I'm
that's true.
kind of bypassing that. But you brought up some financial issues, and I think that is something that concerns me because if we're unable to pay back our debt or if we're just printing money, we're not doing ourselves any good. So, talk about that part. You and I talked about how that was worrisome to us.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about
So
it in
give us
2 sections. So let's talk
some
yeah.
numbers here.
Let's talk about the government, country in general, and then I wanna go back and talk a little bit about prices at the store and locally what we're seeing. But once again, these are numbers that I researched. They're not my numbers. Of course, I can't get numbers except from what I researched. But today we are $32 trillion in debt. Our government is
Ooh.
$32 trillion in debt. If you try to write that on a piece of paper, the number of zeros will scare you. It really will. But that's a number. We see it going up, and I know that you remember this, and I hear it all the time. We hit our debt ceiling, and they have to vote to add 6 trillion more or 3 trillion more. Otherwise, the government's gonna go in a standstill, and basically it shuts down the government. It's scary. I don't know right or wrong what we should be doing there, but I can tell you right now, for me moving forward, we have to figure out how to balance the budget. And that's something we've heard for years, and I don't think we even understand what that means, but let's dig it more into the numbers. 32 trillion in debt. Per year, our government pulls in revenue 3 trillion. So we pull in 3 trillion. But now also think about it, we're pulling in 3 trillion, but we're giving 890 billion to military, so almost a trillion, not quite, but almost a trillion. Each state gets money to work on roads, to fund whatever program. Yeah, I mean, all of our military bases, we've got Fort Leonard Wood, we've got the, what is it, Whiteman's Air Force Base, all of those.
Mhm.
The government funds those. So that's money out of that 3 trillion. Okay. Today, our interest payments, and I say today, these numbers were from about 3 months ago. Our interest payments today is $640 billion a year. That's just interest. Well, we only make 3 trillion. So 640 billion only pays interest, doesn't pay anything off our principal. On top of that, they're saying at the rate we're going, because we keep adding to it, within 5 years, they're projecting that our interest alone will be $1 trillion. The big thing they're worried about, Connie, is what happens to our country when our interest rate or our interest that they call in from us is more than our revenue we pull in GDP basically. What
Yep.
happens when it's 3.1 trillion as our interest, but we only pull in 3 trillion? It doesn't work. You can't function that way.
So why do you feel like, because we've seen the, government shutdowns, and then they have to decide to raise that debt ceiling,
Oh
and
yeah, all the
then
time.
I would imagine there's more money printed, and then we have, we devalue our dollar.
The more money they print, that causes inflation if we wanted to get it all. I mean, this is just this catch-22 that if anybody understood. I mean, right now, our country's doing everything with a credit card in a sense, and you would never support your whole household on a credit card because this 3 trillion in revenue, if we take all of our interest payments off of it, we are giving out more money than 3 trillion a year. So we are asking people fund us every year so that I can fund everybody else. We have to stop doing that. I think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe we have to. And did you know, so out of the 32 trillion in debt, and the sources went back and forth, so I'm going to apologize if they're a little bit off, but we're between 20 and 30% of that is foreign owned debt, from Japan being number 1 and China being number 2. It's really neat how we hate China, but we want to borrow from them, in my mind. It's just
Well,
weird to me.
that's part of that interest that we have.
Yeah, yeah,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
if you take 30% of that between Japan, China, which are the top 2, and then there's several others in there, but we owe $9 trillion in foreign money. Everything else is internal, and that's things that some of the big financial institutes, the bonds, I mean, there's several ways internally that they get funded, but think about that. No household could live off of that. So, all I'm saying is, for me, when I look at a candidate, I'm thinking, do you have the ability to try to balance a budget? And I've never found a candidate, I don't think since I've almost been alive, that has done that, but we have to somehow get our finances in order for our country, because we base everything off of, or everybody in the world bases everything off a reserve currency. That's how oil and everything else that's globally is priced, and that's based off the US dollar because we have reserve currency. That's the reason Japan and China loves our money, and they're willing to take it because we're a good risk, because we are the reserve currency. When that goes away and it becomes something else, they're not as interested in us.
So what would cause that to go away? The
What would
reserve
well,
currency.
yeah, so a few things can cause that to go away. One thing is our dollar weakened against another currency, and enough of the countries getting together saying they don't want to use the US dollar as the reserve currency.
Got it.
And it can happen. And
Yep.
and then they'll choose another currency, whatever it would be, they'll choose. And then we start getting compared to the reserve each year, basically, or each month. So it's interesting because I don't see anybody on social media concerned about that, but I also don't see anybody on social media that's using their credit card every month to pay their house payment, their car payment, and everything, and just hoping that next month it looks better because it won't. And
Well,
I
and
have a lot of concern there.
yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, when we talk about leaving, not just a great earth for our kids, but what about our country? I don't want my kids. I saw a report the other day that said our children it's the first generation who will not be able to do better than their parents.
Oh, wow.
And after hearing those numbers, it makes me go, this needs to change, because I want to give my kids a chance, I definitely want to give my kids a chance.
Well, and I think
So,
everybody does. So let's jump into, and this is one of the things that both the candidates was really big on this year, I think. Everybody has felt the hurt whenever you go to the store today and you check out, and whatever you used to buy that was $72 is now 114 or something. And you're like, holy shit, the
yep.
price of everything has went up. So once again, I am not saying I'm 100% correct. I would love to be challenged on this and talk through it with somebody if I'm not correct. But all of the candidates, all of them, both of them, they had the solution. It was so easy. I mean, I think Harris was talking about all she had to do was, the first thing she was going to do is price gouging. She's getting rid of price gouging. I'm gonna call bullshit on that. Not every manufacturer of a food type product is price gouging. And I'm gonna just tell you, I don't think Walmart's price gouging. I don't think Hy-Vee's price gouging. I think that was just a bullshit, easy way to say I'm gonna do something and make everybody think, oh, she's gonna get these big companies. On the other side, Donald Trump's like, we gotta figure out inflation. As soon as I get inflation down, I'm gonna work with these companies. I think that's bullshit. I'll just be honest. Because this is I did a lot of research and I can tell you where this starts. Let's start at the very top. I have got 401ks. Most of our listeners probably do too. If you've got 401ks, you're invested in companies. I may be invested in a Walmart. I may be invested in Procter and Gamble or whatever. Next year, I need their stock to go up. I need to make money off of their company. If I don't make money off of their company, I'm going to another company. I say I am. My investors hopefully will because I am paying them in a sense to make me money. So at the very top line, what we have is we have corporate expectations. They have to make more money every year. You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So
And as a business owner, that is the truth.
you
Yes.
have to, yes. So let's think about Walmart or products in there or Hy-Vee or wherever you end up going. Think of the products in there. Most all of those are corporations that's got to make more money next year. Okay. So that's the first thing that's going to cause prices to possibly go up. How they can keep that from going up is they produce more, they produce different products, or they cut the cost of a product. Well, how do they do that? Well, first of all, we have higher interest rates today, do we not?
Yes.
Okay. If they want to add additional lines to production, if they want to add additional facilities, most all of these companies get loans for it. Those loans cost them a lot more than it used to cost them. So,
Absolutely.
guess what? That money has to go somewhere. They can't absorb it. If they absorb it, the stockholder's going to get pissed because their stocks are going to go down. So let's keep going though.
Yep.
Labor cost. Labor cost keeps going up. And minimum wage I know went up. Not only minimum wage, but all the added benefits that everybody's needing. The price of insurance is going up. I mean, it is insane, Connie. You know this. And
Yes.
these companies are taking this on themselves. They have to because an employee can't pay. And I can tell you, I worked at a small place for a period of time. My insurance was $900 a month for a family. Most companies or most individuals can't do that. So think about these companies are absorbing all this additional cost. Okay. Once again, remember, stockholders are pushing them. I need more money next year. I'm pushing them because I got their stock. On top of that, then they've got this supply chain. If there's any disruptions, if there's global trade, and we know Trump's talking about putting a global or a tariff on China, well,
Mhm.
that's going to cause some problems. Could. And I'm not going to say I don't know his plan, but it could cause some problems. Fuel prices. Has fuel prices went up?
Yes.
Well, hell, our supply chain, guess what? They run off fuel prices and everything else. Also, there's been a lot of weather events. We've had a lot of hurricanes. We've had a lot of weather impact. All of that combined together contributes to the price you're paying at the supermarket today. And what I'm trying to say is whenever you hear one of our political candidates tell you that they're going to say it's price gouging or it is bullshit answers, what they need to tell you is we're going to get a team together to figure this out because I can tell you right now, if you take all of the problems in the world today or in our country, not the world, Kamala Harris, sorry, or Donald Trump, neither one of those by themselves could fix that problem. They're going to have a huge team of people that understand these industries, understand what happens, and they have to be able to implement these solutions. So what I'm saying is Donald Trump can probably not tell you exactly what it's going to take to get those prices down. Neither could Harris. That's unfair to even ask them to do it because they're going to have to do more research. But what I hate is when they throw out these one answers and act so confident that this one thing's going to fix it because it's not. So, backing up, what I think is going to end up having to happen, we got to get lower interest rates. We've got to figure out the cost of having labor. There's a company in, I believe it's San Francisco, Connie, that I found. They're 100% automated as a small restaurant. They basically do hamburgers and French fries and stuff. It's a very simple organization. But they found that if the labor inside was more than $20 an hour average, they could automate 100% of the restaurant and make more money. So we've got to watch this balance of when and if we keep pushing wages too high that automation makes sense. Can you imagine what's going to happen if 50% of the restaurants automate half of what they're doing and a lot of that labor goes away? And I know, whether it's Trump or Harris, they can say, we'll make sure that doesn't happen. They don't have the right to make sure that this is capitalism. They have no right to make sure that happens.
And I think that's where the younger generation, well, and I say younger generation, I think that's where so many people are really terrified of so much of what they see coming down the pike is, where we can't pay a living wage. And
Yeah,
yet, like you said, these restaurants can start getting it done cheaper. Our products can get made in China cheaper. It's getting to the point to where that part needs to be solved. We need to be able to pay our people a living wage. And
agreed.
again, I am not on that committee. I couldn't solve that problem unless I did a ton more research, but it's scary. And these candidates do that thing. Trump was big on tariffs.
Yes,
And I saw I saw a thing where they were asking people, well, the tariff, what do you think about the tariffs? They're like, oh, it's great. And they said, do you realize that you're the one who actually pays for tariffs? And they're like, no, the other countries pay for tariffs. And they had to explain that to them. And there were so many people who were like, oh, no, 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 that's not the case. A ship comes in from China with product, tariffs are placed on it. The company who gets that product is the one who's charged. And then, or I guess China's charged and then they charge the company. It all falls down to the consumer.
yeah,
And
absolutely does.
I'm like,
But at
I
the
don't
top,
think that.
what's terrible is I know this. I'm going in and bitching about the price I'm paying at the store, but also on the other side, on my 401k I've got, I'm bitching if it's not making money, which means the companies are they're in this middle saying, "What the hell do you want me to do? You want me to make more money for you, but you don't want me to sell it for any more money." I mean, it's tough on these companies. It's not fair the position we put them in, and then we point the spotlight at them and say they're being crooked and evil because I don't believe they all are.
The other part that what about the people who don't have the 401ks? So
Sure.
they're not getting the benefit of the positive of their stocks going up. All they're getting is the negative of the prices going up.
You're absolutely right. So I do understand why people want the minimum wage to go up and better benefits and all that. But
Absolutely.
but just realize that when that happens and we go into McDonald's and our hamburger goes up 50 cents or something, I mean, it's hard for us to complain because that company has to figure out how to balance everything they do. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to this equation. I promise you I don't. But I'm going to also tell you one thing. If Harris was in office, I would say the same thing as Trump being in office right now. I hope to stand behind him and say he's going to put a great team. I hope she would have too. Put a damn good team together. Let's figure out how to make this work, how to get our prices down a little bit, how to lower our debt, how to make our country more appealing. And I say more appealing internally. I think there's more people internally in the US right now that is unhappy with the situation we're in for one reason or another. If we can start showing some positive progress, if we can get our fuel prices down, if we can get our prices down at the store a little bit. And once again, I don't care what candidate it was. I truly don't. I am for the person that can actually get an action done.
Let's take, so I know this is going to be a weird question. Let's take the whole government aspect out of it. How do we, as human beings, with our neighbors, start moving forward
Man,
after this election?
yeah, so first of all, I'm not saying everybody has to go apologize to everybody because we're all big people and understand that, we're not going to like everything that everybody says. But I just think the election's over. Quit gloating. Let's stop it, the gloating, and let's be a little more kinder and say, hey, if you're having any hard time with anything, if there's anything I can do to help, you know what I mean? Be kind. We really are. I mean, I think that the US, we're very kind people or can be. And I think that we just need to switch that from being competitive. Our football team won, in a sense, is what I feel. Back to you are my neighbors, and I want to make sure everybody's okay. If I'll mow your grass if you mow my grass, we need to get back to being civil to everybody, and that's on social media too. Because believe it or not, when you criticize one person on social media, a lot of time, or I say one person, a party like that, it can make a lot of people feel like it's directed towards them because I live right next door to him. I know this is pointed toward, you know what I mean? And it may not be, but really be thinking about what you're posting and why and what fucking purpose does it serve? Is it to gloat? Is it to just say, look at what has happened? Because that's bullshit. We should all stand behind who was voted for president. And why? Because 50.2% of the population voted him. Popular vote. 47% over that was for Harris. So half of the people you're going to meet at work, and maybe not where we live as much as some other place, but half the people in your neighborhood, half the people you work with, may have voted for that other person. I guarantee that you can still have a great conversation with them at lunch. You can still have dinner with them. Just be kind when you're talking politics, because I just don't think we need to cause all this havoc we're causing right now. That's where these counselors are coming from.
Well, and I think that's the other thing. At the beginning, I had said, I don't understand why people need counselors. Well, a lot of that comes from, I don't have a huge ego. I really don't. I don't care whether I'm right or wrong. I mean, yeah, I like to be right. But if I'm wrong, do I have a problem saying to somebody, oh, I was wrong about that? Absolutely not. And so if I sat down with somebody and they said, well, I had to go to the counselor today because this really, really bothered me, my question would be, really, tell me why. And a lot of that would not be judgment. It would be, I really, truly want to find out where your emotional state is. Why? Because if they are so scared, guess what? I, as a human being, want to make sure the next human being feels some love and some safety and some security. I don't have to agree with them.
Absolutely.
But guess what? That is a basic human right, is to feel that.
And I want to, you need to be really cautious, I think, because what we're seeing around locally where we live, Connie, some of the politics is generational. Some of the older really see something one way where the younger generation sees it another. That could be your son, your daughter. Maybe it's not your son, but it could be your daughter-in-law. It could be, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
These are people, I don't think everybody hates them, but man, they can sure spread hate and say that if you voted this way, you could never be a friend of mine, or it is horrible.
Yep.
It is horrible. I just think we need to get back to the basics of let's all be good to each other.
Right. Yep. And don't indict people. I saw that go around. There was a meme that said something like, if you have a gay friend and you voted for Trump, you don't really have a gay friend. You have a gay acquaintance.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you just indicted that person. Because somebody thought that the things that were important to them, which may be completely different than what's important to you, but because of something that was important to them, they voted a certain way. You just indicted them and used shame and guilt. And I think that's what really, really causes a lot of problems in this political world, is that we don't have to use shame and guilt. I mean, I have so many different family members who disagree with my stance, or I disagree with their stance. But guess what? When you sit down and talk to them, ultimately, we all have the same goal. It's just looking at the way you get there.
Absolutely.
And that's the difference. And it's been eye-opening to me as an adult that I go, oh, we're really not that different.
It's true.
It's the way we want to get there. So,
all right, let's close it with this. We've got the holidays coming up, Connie. Let's all be kind to each other. We've got Thanksgiving. Guess what? Someone sitting around your table probably didn't vote the same way. You may have to give a present to somebody that didn't vote your way. But you know what? It's the holidays. The election's over. We either won or lost. Let's just move forward, and let's try and help everybody move forward in a positive manner.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Well, hopefully, Scott, in the next couple weeks, we can dive a little bit more into this. And the only thing that I'd like to see is I would like to see different party lines, like somebody who voted for Harris, the thoughts behind that.
Sure.
And I'd like to see the people who voted for Trump, the thoughts behind that and why they did it. And I want to do it in a way that's just really, truly valuable. Like, I want no judgment. I want to know these people. I want to know their heart. I want to know why.
Yep. I think we can do that.
I think that can open some people's eyes, or at least I hope. Maybe I'm looking for a utopian world, but, I'm going to try either way. So,
all right. Well,
with that, thank you for the talk. I mean, you definitely have more to say about politics than I do.
Now, you balance me a lot, Connie, and I don't say it enough, but I definitely appreciate your views.
And I appreciate you so much. So,
all right. Well, everybody have a good week.
We will talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Our Life Beyond. We really hope that you found our discussion insightful and inspiring, or at least brought a smile to your day. If you did enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a review. For more information, resources, or show notes, visit our website at ourlifebeyond.com. You can also follow us on social media. Search for us on Facebook at Our Life Beyond. We would love to hear from you, our listeners, so feel free to reach out with your questions, comments, or suggestions through our Contact Us page at ourlifebeyond.com or on social media. And once again, thank you for joining us on this journey. Till next time, remember, life beyond any challenge is possible, and we're here to navigate it with you. Stay strong, stay positive, and keep moving forward.